What's up guys, Kevin here from thesportsgeek.com, and in this video I'm going to go over my DraftKings NFL Week 7 picks. So before we get started, I just want to remind you that these are my GPP picks, so these are for the guaranteed prize pool tournaments where we're going to try to place first. Okay, so before we move on to Week 7, let's take a look at my Week 6 picks really quickly. So I had a bunch of solid picks, as you can see here. I had Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson stack that I gave out, and that hit it big time. A lot of the big GPP tournament winners, they had this exact same stack. So we had Stafford get us 37.9 points, Johnson 31.6. I gave out Lamar Miller as a running back pick. He was cheap, and he put up 22.8 points for us. Delaney Walker was my cheap tight end pick, and he put up 17.7 points. We had Emmanuel Sanders get a big touchdown and put up 23.9 points for us. Allen Robinson did it again for me, putting up 20.6 points. So a really solid week overall. I did have a couple busts. I gave out Eddie Lacy. He got 4 points. The Packers ended up going with Starks for most of that game, so that really sucked. And I had the Cardinals D I gave out, and they got burned by the Steelers' second and third string quarterbacks. They only got 1 point. So overall, a great week 6. I had a lot of good emails from people letting me know that they won a lot of money using my Stafford Calvin Johnson stack I gave out last week. And then I had this awesome email from a guy named Eric. He didn't want me to share his email address, but he said that he won $125,000 last week, and he was using Stafford and Calvin. And he also noted that he switched his running back to Murray after one of my emails I sent out on, I think it was Sunday morning. So that was really cool to hear. Congrats to Eric. That's a huge win. I hope I get more of these emails in the future, and hopefully this week with my NFL Week 7 picks. So here we go. Okay, so my favorite stack for GPP tournaments this week is going to be Teddy Bridgewater and Stephon Diggs. Bridgewater at 5,100, Diggs at 4,200. Bridgewater is going to be really low owned. He's only 5,100. His salary has dropped from the start of the season where he was 6,600. So we're getting pretty good value on Bridgewater. He's playing in Detroit, and last year in Detroit he threw for 315 yards. He did have 2 interceptions and just 1 touchdown, but if he can throw for over 300 yards again this year, he's going to get value there at 5,100, hopefully a couple scores for us as well. The Lions have a weak defense against the pass. They rank last in QB rating against and passing yards per attempt against. So we're going to pair him up with Diggs here. Diggs had 7 catches for 129 yards last week, and the week prior versus a good Denver secondary, he had 6 catches and 87 yards. So he's becoming Bridgewater's favorite target. I'm still going to do a couple Bridgewater stacks with both Rudolph and Wallace, but Diggs is my number 1 stack with Bridgewater. For running back, we're going to go with Todd Gurley at 5,000. So this is kind of the obvious choice of the week. He's going to be very highly owned, but I just can't leave him out, even in my GPP lineups where I usually try to get lower owned players. I can't leave out Gurley. I think he's going to have a massive game again. He's coming off 2 games where he put up 146 and 159 yards, and now he's facing a Browns defense who gives up the second most yards per rushing attempt. So I think he's going to light up the Browns defense at home off a bye. I can't leave him out, even at 5,000. My favorite wide receiver for the week is Larry Fitzgerald at 7,400. He's going to be great to stack with Palmer this week as they're facing Baltimore at home on Monday Night Football. I do think that both Palmer and Fitzgerald are going to be really highly owned, but I'm still going to have Fitzgerald in a lot of my lineups at 7,400. He's been really consistent all year. His lowest DraftKings score has been 14.7, and he's had 2 huge weeks of 37.4 and 40.2 points. So if he can get us over 30 points this week, that would be huge. Still a fairly cheap price for an elite wide receiver at 7,400. And he's facing a Ravens defense who are really bad against the pass. They rank 29th in opponents' passing yards per attempt. All right, so my tight end play of the week is going to be Ladarius Green at 2,900. I do realize this is a really risky pick with Gates back in, but he's $2,100 cheaper than Gates, and he's going to be much lower owned. He might be around 1% owned, while Gates is going to be around 40% owned, I would project. The Raiders have one of the worst pass defenses versus tight ends, which is why you'll see a lot of people going to Gates. But I'm going to go to Green, who still gets his looks. Even with Gates in last week, he caught 3 balls for 35 yards and a touchdown. So if Green can get maybe 3-4 catches this week and possibly a touchdown or maybe even 2, he's going to provide us really great value. So this is kind of a really risky pick, but I'm hoping that maybe Oakland's paying more attention to Gates and Rivers finds Green for maybe a touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns. We'll see. Okay, so here's 5 more DraftKings NFL Week 7 picks. So again, I'm not huge on giving out defenses because a lot of it comes down to defensive touchdowns, and that can be really random. But this week, my favorite defensive special teams play is the Eagles at 2,700. They're pretty cheap. They're in Carolina on Sunday night. The Eagles are good at forcing turnovers. Last week we saw them have a pick six on the Monday night game. And I don't know, I think they can force a couple turnovers against Cam Newton and the Carolina offense. So you never know, they could bring one back for a touchdown. And they also have some pretty good special teams. Darren Sproles could get a punt return for a touchdown. So I like the Eagles at 2,700. Next up here, we got QB Carson Palmer. I kind of touched on him before. He's 6,700, really low price for how good of a quarterback he is, but he's going to be highly owned. He does face a weak Ravens defense this week, so I do expect him to put up points, so I'll have him in some of my lineups. Another running back for you guys, Frank Gore at 4,900. He'll be in a lot of my lineups. I expect that game with the Saints to be a high-scoring game, and if Frank Gore can get his touches and get his red zone opportunities, I expect a big game out of him. So wide receiver Jamison Crowder from Washington, 3,700. He's third in the Redskins in receiving yards. He has big playability, and he's a cheap price this week. They'll be going against Tampa Bay. I expect them to put up some points. Crowder could go off for a couple big plays. I like his value at 3,700 for GPPs. High upside there for him. And then last, we've got Jordan Cameron, 3,300, tight end for the Dolphins. He's been getting his targets this year. He's usually getting around 7, 8, 9 targets a game. He hasn't had a huge game yet. He did get a touchdown last week, but with those targets, I expect him to start catching some of those balls and maybe get in the end zone again this week. So at 3,300, that's another cheap tight end I like for this week. All right, guys, that's it for my NFL Week 7 picks for DraftKings. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by clicking the thumbs up button on YouTube so I know to keep making them. And if I can get over 1,000 thumbs up this week, I've gotten that for the last 3 weeks. So if you guys can do that again for me, I'll make a Week 8 video as well. And if you guys don't have access to my free lineup tool, I paid over $1,000 to have it made, and I'm giving it to you guys for free. Just click on the link in the YouTube description for that. All right, guys, so as always, good luck in your contest. I hope someone hits it big again this week with my picks, and good luck to everyone out there. Cheers.